Oh, Mr. Frodo, I don't feel so good. Slight disclaimer, I am slowly recovering from a cold right now, so if I look a bit congested and nasally, or I sound a bit hoarse, my bad. I'm just a bit sick, that's all. So we finally have the title for Amazon's The Lord of the Rings show, called The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And overall, I am lukewarm on the title, we'll say, because on the one hand, the title The Rings of Power is a good title for the show. I don't think you need to put The Lord of the Rings in front of it. Like, it makes the title feel really long and convoluted. Unless The Rings of Power is just the name of the show and The Lord of the Rings is just a marketing tactic, which I mean is fine, but also the hashtag Amazon uses for this show, hashtag Lord of the Rings on Prime, it makes me think that the full title actually is The Lord of the Rings of Power, which even then, it's too long of a name. It's really long and convoluted and a bit kind of unpleasant to say because you say the word rings twice within the span of 3 words. But also, on the one hand, the title The Rings of Power is cool because from what we've been told, the show is essentially the Second Age of Middle-earth. It's showing the forging of the Rings of Power, the ones that get given to the elves, the dwarves, the men, the one that Sauron forges, the One Ring. We're gonna see all of that. But then we're also going to see places like Gondor, we're going to see the Men of Numenor, we're going to see Isildur. But there's also been rumors that apparently the show's going to revolve around Isildur's sister or something, and it's kind of like, okay, why? But then we've also been told that the show is also going to span up to the last alliance of elves and men, so I'm assuming and predicting that the show's finale, not season 1's finale, but the show's finale is going to be the last alliance of elves and men where they march on Mordor. Basically the prologue to Fellowship of the Ring. I think that's how the show is going to end, which in itself is a cool idea and could be really cool. But then also, I was thinking about this the other day, and my biggest concern for the show is there a story that's needed, to be told here? Because from what I gather, they're essentially using the appendices and some of the unfinished tales of Tolkien, and they're just turning that into a multi-season television show, which on paper I'm like, okay, you could do that. But then the other part of me is going, we've seen them try and do this before in film form in The Hobbit, when they took the necromancer subplot from The Hobbit and they gave it to Gandalf and they put it in the Hobbit films. And ultimately, they didn't really do anything with it, because aside from getting, Radagast the Brown, and honestly, I don't mind Radagast the Brown. Is it Tom Baker who plays him? I know it's one of the doctors from Doctor Who plays him. I liked Radagast. I thought they went a bit too extreme in the whole, oh yeah, he's an animal lover. Like, the rabbit slay was a bit dumb and kind of corny, but overall, I mean, I liked Radagast, and there's a cool atmosphere in the Dol Guldur stuff in Desolation of Smaug, but the way it wraps up in the Battle of the Five Armies, I didn't care for. It was just, oh look, here comes Elrond and Galadriel and Saruman, and then they fight these ghost versions of the Ringwraiths, and then they disappear, and then Saruman's all like, oh, leave Sauron to me, and that's it. And it's like, oh, okay, so now Gandalf's just gonna go back to the company and deal with the Battle of the Five Armies. It's like, that wasn't really a story told here, it was just, oh, Gandalf finds out Sauron's back. And if I'm remembering this correctly, he doesn't actually know that in the book, it's more of a speculation. Because I know the Hobbit movies, they try to add a prequel to The Lord of the Rings, where they're seeding in the Sauron stuff, and they're like, oh, yep, this is gonna pay off later. Like how Gandalf knows Bilbo has the One Ring in the film, but in the books he doesn't, and it's that weird thing where I'm like, we've seen Hollywood do this before. We saw it with the Hobbit trilogy, and I don't hate the Hobbit trilogy as a whole. In fact, I love An Unexpected Journey, and I love half of Desolation of Smaug, but not in as in I love half the film. I love half of the elements of the film. Everything to do with Smaug is great, everything to do with Bilbo is great, everything to do with Gandalf at Dol Guldur is pretty cool, but it pays off pretty poorly in Battle of the Five Armies, but that stuff is good. I like the beginning. But there's a lot of stuff in the middle where it's just Legolas and Tauriel and them in Lake Town, and it's this really long-winded, dragged-out, padded thing, and then the finale where the dwarves are fighting Smaug in the mountain, and then you've also got the attack on Lake Town with the orcs, and it's like, I don't care, why are you padding this out? I mean, I'm telling you, if you edited the Hobbit trilogy back into that planned duology that they were going to do, or if you just edit the trilogy into this one long film, obviously cut out all the random bits of filler and action, but you make that, 1 3-hour long film, it would be amazing. But they didn't, they padded it out, and they made it bad. And that right there is my biggest fear for this show, because they're working off cliff notes, they're working off unfinished stories, they're working off basically historical bullet points. And whilst you can make historical epics, from bullet points, because, that's what we're dealing with when it comes to history. There isn't a full account of everything that's happened. You can get some cool historical epics. I really like The King with Timothée Chalamet, and that worries me. Like, is there a story worth telling here, or are we just going to be going through the appendices going, yep, we're hitting this bullet point, we're hitting this bullet point, we're hitting this bullet point? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm very skeptical that Amazon is producing this. I watched The Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time is not a good show. It's a horribly made show, and it doesn't pay respect to its source material. And, this is the Lord of the Rings we're talking about. This is the gold standard of fantasy literature. This is the thing that everyone praises and loves and adores. And I love and adore the Lord of the Rings. The books are an acquired taste, and I haven't really acquired that taste myself in a way. Like, I love bits of it, but when I say I'm a fan of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, the book, actually, I'm a big fan of. But when I say I'm a massive fan of The Lord of the Rings, I'm talking about the movies. Peter Jackson's movies are the pinnacle of fantasy adaptations. They are the pinnacle of book-to-screen adaptations. They are exactly what you need to do when making an adaptation. And because the subject matter of this show is just notes from the appendices, it worries me a bit. There aren't character arcs, there aren't story beats, it's just bullet points on a page, and trying to turn that into a multi-season TV show it's scary to me. Not to mention the fact that Amazon wants to act like this is the same universe as the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films by, getting in the set designers, the same costume designers, trying to make it all look and feel the same. But then you look at that title trailer and it doesn't feel the same. They recast Galadriel when they probably could have just got Cate Blanchett back. They've recast Elrond. I think the guy who played young Ned Stark is playing young Elrond. And just going off that title announcement trailer, the actress playing Galadriel, I'm sure, is a good actor. But someone actually said in the comments section of that title announcement video, they said that it feels like a video game teaser trailer where it's based on the Lord of the Rings property, but they couldn't get the movie actors, so they just got a bunch of voice actors to embody the characters but not play the film characters. And that's very much what it feels like. Like, you hear the Galadriel actress doing the famous Lord of the Rings poem, but she doesn't deliver it in the same gravitas and cadence and tone as Cate Blanchett. She delivers it in her own way, which is fine, but then also you're trying to tell the audience, hey, this is set in the same universe as Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, but it doesn't feel like it because it's not Cate Blanchett. And that's not me saying the actress is not going to do a good job, because, she delivered the lines fine in the trailer. But in terms of it trying to be, Cate Blanchett's Galadriel, because that's what the show wants you to feel like. It wants you to feel like, hey, this is the same universe as those movies. It doesn't feel like it, and so it feels off and it feels wrong. And another thing about that teaser was that the whole thing is done practically. Like, Amazon released this video of them showing the guys pouring the molten gold into the casts and, cooling it down with the water. And it's all real. Like, they got cameras and they, zoomed in really close, and it's all real, and they shot it in slow motion. All that steam and smoke and water and fire, that's all real. And I'm like, that's incredible. That's cool. And then you look at the final announcement trailer, and the way they've color graded it, it makes it look like CG, and it's like, why shoot it practically if you're not going to color correct it properly? And it makes it look cheap. Like, why go to all that effort if you're just going to make it look cheap in the end? And that's what scares me. They went to the lengths of making this really cool, practical announcement trailer sequence, but you look at the final result and it just looks fake. But look, this is just the title announcement trailer. This isn't actual footage from the show. I think the only still we've gotten from the show is that one shot of that dude standing outside Minas Tirith. And to be honest, the color grading there looks really good. Like, it looks great. And so I hope that's the look of the show, not this opening title sequence or announcement trailer thing, whatever. I just hope the look of the show stays true to that released image they released, I think, under a year ago. Like, it needs to stay true to that, because that stayed true to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. The show could be great, just because I have concerns about them turning bullet points into a story. And look, judging by Amazon's choice of showrunners and writers for The Wheel of Time, I won't say I have the strongest confidence in the writing team for this show, but there is potential here. They got J.A. Bayona to direct a bunch of episodes, and J.A. Bayona is a really good director. I love The Impossible, And so I think he will do a good job, hopefully, providing he has, you know, good writing. And also, this is the time of Isildur and Elendil, so, like, we're gonna see Narsil, like, all the time, which, I mean, hopefully we do, because, like, Narsil is the coolest sword, it's amazing. I mean, I know this is technically Anduril, but, like, it's so cool. I mean, it's forged from the shards of Narsil. This sword is just so goddamn cool. I mean, like, yes, Narsil doesn't have the elven runes on it, but if we get to see this sword on a consistent basis in this show, like, hell yeah, like, that's awesome. Also, I think Howard Shore is coming back to score the show, which in itself is exciting because Howard Shore is an amazing composer, but he also hasn't done a lot. Like, I think the last thing he did was the Hobbit trilogy. And honestly, the thing that bugs me about the score in the Hobbit trilogy was that the scores got progressively worse, in the sense of that the music in Desolation of Smaug and in Battle of the Five Armies were fine. I mean, I adore Tariel's theme, that's great. But the score in those two movies are just pale in comparison to not only Lord of the Rings, but also to The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. The score in An Unexpected Journey is so goddamn beautiful. Howard Shore's, you know, orchestration of Misty Mountains Cold and turning that into the main theme for that film was amazing. That was like that film's version of the Fellowship theme. And then you get to the other two films and they get rid of it and you're like, why would you do that? That was perfect. It was amazing. Like, why did he get rid of that in the other films? Like, just, god damn it. But he is scoring this show, and that does give me hope that they're trying to at least maintain that same, you know, love and care and attention that Peter Jackson brought to those Middle-earth films. I mean, yes, The Hobbit had that troubled production, but at the end of the day, Peter Jackson was trying, in a way, to fix it. Or at least trying to make it work. Like, you look at the behind-the-scenes of Battle of the Five Armies, and you can just see him have these, like, meltdowns and panic attacks on sets of him just sitting there, just trying to figure out how to do things. And, like, you honestly feel really bad for him. I feel really bad for him. I mean, in many ways, it turned him off filmmaking, in a way. And, like, he's doing that Beatles documentary, but it's like, god damn it, why did the Hobbit films have to break Peter Jackson like that? That sucks. But honestly, at this point, I'm rambling, so just to kind of wrap up this video, I'm concerned about this show, purely because I saw The Wheel of Time. I did not like The Wheel of Time. It's made by the same company, but it's also not made by the same people, so there is hope. The title is a bit long-winded and convoluted, but I do like the name The Rings of Power. I just don't think it should have the Lord of the Rings in the title. And maybe it doesn't have it in the title. I think it should just be called The Rings of Power, but you know, them putting in the Lord of the Rings title, I get why they put it in there, but just, I don't think you need it for the full-on main title. Like, you know, for The Hobbit, they didn't call it The Lord of the Rings The Hobbit, they just called it The Hobbit. I know this was a minor point I raised, but the colour grading in that announcement trailer was a bit off and wrong and overexposed, and that has me worried about the show's internal quality, and just, I hope that isn't the case. I hope it is spectacular throughout, especially judging by that still image they released under a year ago. The actor's narration of Galadriel was off, but that's just because in my head I'm comparing it to Cate Blanchett, which in a ways is understandable because the show is trying to make us, you know, link this to the Lord of the Rings films. It wants to be those films, so in a way it's kind of expecting you to go, hey, think of Cate Blanchett, but also don't think of Cate Blanchett because we couldn't get Cate Blanchett. I'm also just worried that there possibly isn't a story to tell here, but I could be wrong. I'm praying I'm wrong, and I hope this show is good. It's coming out in September, and just please be good. I do not want another Wheel of Time. My question to you guys is, do you think the Amazons, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power will be good? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. It's all down in the description. And until we meet again, see you guys next time.